Alright, back with another review. This one, as you can see, I can imagine, this is in a different location than usual. I've been busy as of late. This is my workplace, my desk. I'm at my desk, and so I'm doing it here, right before I leave work. Yep, anyways. It is June. It's like June 8th or something. And I just finished 2 days ago or something, Wrath, the fourth and final book of The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. And what can I say? The fourth book brings this series back up because it went from pretty high for the first two books, dropped a little for the third, and back up to the fourth. We focused more on Corbin. We focused more on storylines that were more interesting to me. Yeah, what I really liked about it is the character work. I really like how the story finished up. Everything felt natural. There was a little bit of rushing when it came to Corbin at the end, and how, let's say, how Corbin came back. This spoilers, right? So how Corbin died and then made a deal with some spirit who was unaligned with good or evil. Very evil, though. He was unaligned with Azeroth. He was just living under the lake. Forget the name. But somehow this demon was able to give him life for Calidus's soul, basically, kind of. I'm not sure how that works, and we didn't spend much, if not any time, on it. So that felt rushed, but I was fine with it because I didn't want to spend too long on it. Fight scenes were great. Everything was great, right? And there were moments, especially this final battle felt like a final battle, right? Every character kind of had their moment. Lots of characters died. I really like that. Not because I enjoyed seeing them die, but because the characters, whenever I was seeing characters that we've been with for 4 books, none of them felt safe, and there were actual stakes. Like, I had a problem with Wheel of Time. The final battle happened, and it felt like mostly on, like, 90% of the deaths were side characters that we kind of paid attention to, while the main characters were all safe. This one, the whole cast of everyone is kind of a side character in this. No one felt like the main character other than Corbin. Everyone else is a side character. Meanwhile, you have like Matt and Perrin in the other one. This one, and this series, you have point of view characters dying all the time. That phone is going off. Hopefully you don't hear it. If you do, whatever, right? It's gonna go for a little bit. I'm not gonna answer it. What else? I'd say the fighting was good. I have a problem a little bit with the sameness of how John Gwynne portrays the fighting, in which, the character is, fighting, they do well, then they're on the back foot. Oh, they decided to call a closer phone. Still not gonna answer. Good gravy. Good gravy. This is just making life great. Anywho, the fighting with John Gwynne, every character seems to have a moment where they're on the back foot. A spear, a sword, an axe, a warhammer is about to crush them, about to collapse their skull, go through the chest like that. This happens 99% of the time, and then out of nowhere something comes and stops it somehow, right? And it got to the point where you see him coming. You see him coming, and just how the setup happens. Sometimes John Gwynne fools you, and the thing actually lands and injures badly, or kills. Typically that happens when the person's injured badly. It's like, oh, I missed it, and then a red line appeared. A red line, that's the one that happens a lot. Just the prose with that kind of got samey, but that might happen from me reading the stories one after the other, the books one after the other. And another thing in these books, in all of them, especially in the beginning of all the books, like a paragraph is a retelling, like, oh, then this character walked through the door, Fidel, let's say, remembers how he did this from the first book or the second book or the third book, whatever. That happens like in every single book, which got pretty samey. But just that with the prose kind of bothered me, but I skipped past most of it if I could, or just read really quickly through it. The story itself was solid. The series itself was really good. That's up there and definitely top 5 fantasy series. I have to think about it. Maybe in top like 10 series it's definitely in. I have to compile that list one of these days, but it is in the top, and I was speed reading through these books. Loved them. Couldn't put them down a lot of times. I was sacrificing time when I should have been doing other things reading these books. They were good. They're really, really good. This one I would give like an 8.8. Yeah, like an 8.8 for this. It was really, really solid. There were moments like when Halen threw the drag egg into basically the shield wall, behind the shield wall, and the 3 dregs just smashed through them, right? That was such a great moment, a great moment where I wanted to like jump up and be like, oh, that was such a, like how it was written was such a sick way it was written. I could see it in my mind's eye, right? Which is great when that happens. And the battles are great. I felt like this was just, how I think about it is that Corbin, the series, is a better version of Wheel of Time and more condensed in that it is a classic. It feels like a classic fantasy. The way that it's written, you get all the juicy parts of every single chapter. Is like something happens that's interesting, that moves the plot along, that an interesting character thing happens. You skip most, if not all, of like the walking and the bickering and all this kind of stuff that really slogged down Wheel of Time. Was just bickering between characters and people being treated poorly for no apparent reason, like Matt being treated poorly all the time by the magic girls, Egwene and Nynaeve and all them, right? If you read it, you know what I'm talking about. It just slogged down and having all these side stories that lead nowhere, really, and it just feels like a place to halt the characters for, you know, a couple books to chase after a bull for no reason, really, right? The world has been getting hotter and you hear about it for a few books, but then they get the bull of the winds and change that. Great. Love it. I'm talking too much about Wheel of Time. Just this is a more condensed 4-book instead of 15 book. Well, really 14 if you skip the prequel, but 4 books that get all of the, you feel all the epicness, you feel the journey, you feel how great it is, that feeling, right? When you know what I mean when you read a fantasy series, just the epicness of it, how you go from farm boy to leader of men, right, who is completing this amazing task. You get all of that the Wheel of Time gives without the useless baggage and useless books and meandering side plots. All this kind of stuff is gone. You get the meat, and that's what this is. Well, it is a steak dinner of a series, and it's really good. I would recommend it to anyone as like even a primer fantasy series, like a starter, because it is fast. The prose is really great. The fighting is great. Nothing takes overly long. It is a classic fantasy that I would definitely recommend. Overall, I'd give the series an 8.5. I haven't done any math, right? Just got a text. I haven't done any of the math to get that. The 8.5, 8.7, 8.0, 8.8, I think is what the scores were. If you'd actually do the math, it'd probably be around an 8.4, 8.5, around there. So that's where I'm going to put it, 8.4, 8.5. And again, I would recommend that to anyone. What I was going to mention with Corbin is that Corbin feels to me like what Perrin in Wheel of Time should have been. I'm always bringing it back to Wheel of Time because it's a good benchmark, right? Wheel of Time is a good benchmark for modern fantasy in a way. Because it almost feels like the start of modern fantasy was Wheel of Time. Anyways, because this has a lot of Faithful and the Fallen has a lot of tropes in the beginning and throughout it, but it charts its own path into modern fantasy, and Wheel of Time did the same. Corbin feels like Perrin and what Perrin should have been, and not so disappointing as Perrin was and still is. The entire time I wanted Perrin to be my favorite character, and he just was blah. every character I was disappointed in Wheel of Time except for Matt. And even with Matt, he had too much garbage in the middle there. Meanwhile, at the end, he was amazing. But Corbin is great throughout when Perrin should have been that. So again, I know this kind of turned into a Wheel of Time kind of rant a little bit, but maybe that video is in the future somewhere else. But this I would recommend. What Wheel of Time I would never recommend. This Faithful and Fallen I would recommend to fantasy veterans and to newcomers, to people who just want to read a solid fantasy, and I would be comfortable giving this recommendation to anyone. Overall, solid. Might do a reread in the future. However, there is a follow-up series by John Gwynne that's like 3 books long, and I plan on reading that sometime in the future, because I know it's with different characters and everything, so and it's in the future as well. So I plan on reading it in the future. I'm gonna have some time to cool off, because you know, once you finish a fantasy series, you need to cool off a bit. I'll throw something else in there, but as of now, hard sell. Good job, John Gwynne, and I wonder what my next book is going to be. Let's find out. All right, on to the next one.